and some.
Yeah. So sorry about not hitting recording sooner, but so the question, is this Heather? You're Heather, because I never see your name on there. I don't know your name, Elena or Heather. You're muted now.
Elena. It's
Okay,
Elena.
Elena.
Yeah. I'm wearing
Yeah.
glasses today though, so I probably look
Okay.
different.
So your practice would be just to be around your family and wait for your body to feel that trigger, like where you start to feel the uncomfortable, the upset. Just trust your body, kind of just being in awareness and feeling into the body and checking into how you feel around different family members. And when you start to feel an upset, if it's hard to do it around people, but if you can just kind of pull away for a second, feel into your body, and you can from there find out who is upsetting you, like which family member. Pull them up, and then again, if it's some judgment against you, just ask yourself, like, what are they saying about me? What's the judgment? Once I have them up, and then therefore, once the judgment comes up, you can sit with it. See, if you don't know that, then you're just sitting there with this feeling of upset, and you have some inkling that it's about Joe, but there's no way to get under it. You're just stuck in it. But here you wouldn't be, because by trusting the body, there's Joe. What's he saying about me? I'm a failure. Sit with that. I'm a failure. There you go. There's your practice. Sit with it and then turn it into a reverse inquiry, which means just saying it again with the intention of witnessing any objections that might be there. So that's your practice. Trust your body, pull aside, pull the person up that's bothering you, find out what the judgment is, own it, reverse it. That might be
Okay.
a good one just to do that for the whole gathering. And then let us know how it works. Like when you come
Okay,
back,
sure.
because that's the fun part, is finding out what happened. If stuff comes up.
Interestingly enough, when I started doing inquiry, my aunt, who is coming to visit, who is the one that said most of all those things,
Mm.
was one of the first people that came up that I did anger repression with. So, I mean, I wonder if I'll be able to set boundaries a little bit better now or anything like that.
Oh,
We'll
well,
see.
look, let's talk a little bit about that, because everybody's going into Christmas here, holidays, and boundaries are
Mhm.
important there. So that might be as simple as, like, if there's a boundary to be set with someone, you pull aside and you pull grandmother up or something. Who is it, aunt, or who's the
Yeah,
person?
aunt.
Aunt.
Uh-huh.
So you pull aunt up and you just say, okay, I can set this boundary with her, or I can I can ask her not to bring to talk about that, or whatever the boundary is. Just saying it firmly, I can do that, and then listening for objections, because that's where the transformation is watching how the ego says no to that and various other thoughts. But as you sit with it, the thought stream about no gets weaker and weaker and less, and it feels like then you might be able to, like, speak up. But that's your work cut out for you. You have to kind of go
Yeah.
aside and do the inquiry first, because it's hard to set a boundary from within conditioning that's repressed.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So there's a bigger piece here on anger repression that I've been inviting you into, which is more than you can do right now for the holidays. But these two inquiries are good, on the spot
Hmm.
inquiries for
Okay.
challenging family members.
Can I
Did you hear
follow
all
up on
that?
that?
Yeah.
So I think that situation you're talking about, Elena, I experienced that a lot, primarily because I have a mother who doesn't really understand boundaries. So going back to what Scott was saying at the beginning, and it wasn't recorded. So the first thing you said was, whatever they say, kind of do the whole owning it. I got to tell you, whenever I try that, I don't know if it's like internal rejection or whatever it is supremely hard. So if you can, but at the same time, like, this is like carpet bombing every time I deal with her, as well as a couple of other people in my life. Now, I have gotten better at setting boundaries, but it's more because I have a pretty strong personality. When I need to have, I'll just come to someone's face and I'll put them in their place. So I can, like, do that in like an earthly term, but it's hard for me internally because I don't feel good about it. So yes, I could do the reverse inquiries afterwards. One, it takes a long time. Two, I guess the crux of what I'm saying is I have a hard time owning the things that are being projected on me because it just feels like a curse. It feels like someone's cursing you. It feels like
Yeah.
someone is looking at you like you are this, whatever it is. And you're like, how could I possibly own that?
What if you tried reverse inquiry first so that you could be with objections? Because it sounds like it's hard to sit with it because the mind's like, no, it's objecting to it. So what if you turn it into reverse inquiry first instead of just owning the phrase? So someone calls me a narcissist. I'm a narcissist. And then that's too much there. I can't do it. But what if I say I'm a narcissist in order to listen to objections? That might be easier to sit with. Like, no, I'm not. I'm a good person. Or I don't have a narcissistic bone in my body. Or just watching objections might be easier than just sitting with the phrase. It has a lot of energy on it.
I think, yeah, so I try to do that, but I do that afterwards. I think it's like, I don't know if anyone else experiences, but like in like a half an hour conversation, it's not like one trigger and I'm just like, oh, I'll just put that in a box and I'll go listen to it afterwards. It's more like there's 50 of them coming. It's like you're just like you're under fire. And you know, we talk about the fight, flight, freeze, flop thing. I think it was yesterday you guys were doing that. I listened to it. I'm the fighter, at least in the moment. I'm the fighter. I will go after them, right? I would just start like, let's go. And so I find it overwhelming, inundating. And maybe the path is you just do reverse inquiry on whatever, one or two aside, and it's an overall, you know, like a long-term strategy, if you will.
Yeah.
But what I'm experiencing currently is if I'm in that moment and it's just coming at me one after the other, then like my defenses are gonna go up. I will go to war, and I find myself going to war. And my best defense, if you will, without starting war, is just to walk away. And those are kind of like the choices I tend to find myself in. Any thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, you could do the old Eckhart thing that says be the space for people, but it's more challenging than that. Like to just be the space for people, because then you're still feeling all the triggers. There's might be more presence to it. It's like what he's saying is like, if you're with somebody who's challenging, keep your attention like in your heart area and listen from there so that your mind isn't trying to find all the triggers and everything someone says. You're just sort of feeling them more than hearing them. And that's helpful. But in the end, I think this stuff has to be processed because of all the stuff we believe. So yeah, maybe pick one or two and then just pull aside. But it's hard. I can do inquiry in the moment. That's the thing. Sometimes I can do it in the moment. I don't know if others can yet. Like, in other words, you're just listening to someone and then you just reverse it while they're listening and watch a few things and feel and then respond. But, you know, that takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. And so you're going to have to set aside, I think, and just pick the greatest hits, biggest hits in your body and go into it. But the other thing is like that run or that fight response. That might be something that you could tune into in the moment. If it's like somebody says something, can you hear that command to go after them? Like fight or whatever it is and start just witnessing it, allowing it in the moment. I don't know if you can be that aware of that when you're being triggered in that way.
I don't know. I never even thought that there might be a command there. So I'm writing it down to see if I can find it.
I think it's like any other command. I think it's hidden. Like those who don't fight, run. Like I was a runner, and that was like hide or get away. You know, I've told you about that. Like just get away from these people. Get away, get away, get away. But I didn't even know it was there until this inquiry KI, and then I started to recognize it. So maybe you can start recognizing in the moment, like really listening to the body and feeling the fight response and bringing that word up or whatever the word is that tells you, commands you to fight, and just kind of watch it. That's an idea. Not saying you'll be able to do it, but
so just I'm sorry. I know I'm finishing up. I'll pass the baton real quick. So going back to the beginning of what you said about the whole owning it, is that like a necessary step, or is that just another tool in the whole dissipation of
Just a,
energy?
it's just another tool, but I found it to be direct, like really direct, because if I could just give up my fight about what everybody else thinks about me, I'm free. But I can't give up my fight if I'm constantly squirming out of the things they're saying about me. If I'm not willing to feel the uncomfortableness that comes with the things they're saying, then I'm gonna. So just to be not squirm out of the uncomfortableness is really direct. I'm a narcissist. Okay, I have to feel this. Now I don't want to, but in feeling it, it's so direct. Just being with it, bring it a few times. So it's not necessary, but really freeing to be able to do that with what you think people are perceiving about you or saying. Just own it all. But you're not owning it. You're not like, oh, I am a narcissist. You're not picking it all up as an identity. You're seeing it and feeling everything that goes with it. So it slips away. The feeling starts slipping away as you witness it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Would you
My
ever
question-
go in?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, you go.
Would you ever question, if I'm a narcissist and I have objections, why do I not want to be a narcissist? Like what comes up? Is there that, or just accepting?
You could get into utility, like what do I get out of believing I'm not a narcissist, or whatever I do believe I am? Like I'm a good person. I'm not a narcissist. Well, what do I get out of believing that? That's how I get love. That's the usual hits on utility. Might get to the why. Yeah. See if there's anything else there. See, the story that objects to that is something other than narcissist. So if I'm trying to own narcissist, there's something else that I'm believing under that, like the opposite or something. So pulling that out and doing utility on it. I don't know what it is for each person, but for me, it would be like narcissist. The opposite of narcissist would be a good, loving, compassionate, open, transparent person. And so what do I get out of believing that I'm that? That might bring it up. Okay, somebody else was speaking when Carolyn did.
Oh, yeah, it was me. So I'm wondering if you have any pointers on how to do inquiry in the moment, because I kind of feel like I'm going to have to do that during this time. And I usually feel like I just get sucked into programs, and I'm a freezer. So I just will kind of freeze up and be quiet and just sort of sit there and feel really bad. Or maybe also go into fawn territory of just like trying to make everyone happy and be a total type 9 peacemaker kind of person. And so I feel like I get really unconscious, and it would be hard for me to do it in the moment. But I'd like to try, because I want to shift this family dynamic, because I think it'll make everyone happier if I can, you know.
Yeah. Do you shut down in those moments when they're coming at you? In other words, you might feel some anger, but you hold it in and you go quiet. Is that your response?
I feel anger, and I actually think I made a big discovery yesterday. I've been struggling with this like persistent shame, and I think it is probably a lot from coming from a family like that, that's like very shaming. But
Mhm.
I kind of think that the shame that I feel could be almost like hiding my anger and making it so I can repress my anger more. And I discovered
Yeah.
that yesterday. And I think that's the utility of it. Like that's what it's there for, sort of.
Mhm.
So basically what will happen is I will just like I'll just start feeling really ashamed, like angry and ashamed mix. Like angry, like I can't believe she said that about my kid and the ADHD medication. And I'll get really mad, and I'll maybe defend myself a little bit, but then I'll kind of shut down and feel like, oh, maybe she's right. Maybe I'm a terrible mom or whatever. And then I'll just sort of freeze and sit there and let her do whatever, I guess.
Right.
You
So
know?
yeah, one of the things we're finding, like when there's an anger repression, is there's like, I call it a shutdown, but you have a
Mhm.
different word for it. But it's when you're not expressing, and then you go quiet and usually ruminating about the situation there quietly.
Mhm.
So there, if what I find is when people come out of repression where they can say things, they don't shut down as much. The shutdown seems to be connected with repressing somewhat. Not to say that you're going to unload everything on her. That's not necessarily the answer, but being able to express is important. Feeling like you have that accessible to you, so you're not forced into shutdown or freeze mode. So when you're in it, I actually have a video called "Inquiring Out of Shutdown." You might look for it on here or YouTube. And basically, it comes from the moment of just my own experience of learning or not learning, unlearning anger repression, coming out of anger repression, and then becoming more aware of the state of shutdown that goes with it. So, like, partner says something, it triggers, but instead of responding on what I really want to say, I go quiet, and then I'm sort of paralyzed in that, or I was.
Mhm.
So, start with like a simple inquiry. The great thing about shutting down is that you're not responding to other people, so you can go into a process. Like, if you're an extrovert or a fighter, you might end up fighting the other person, and then you
Mm.
can't do inquiry because you're so much output there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're a shutter downer, you can use that quietness to process because you're already quiet. And so it's not
Yeah.
like anybody's going to see that, oh, she's still quiet. It's nothing new. You're still quiet, but you're processing. So what I would do is like just sit there, and I don't have to shut down right now. Start there. And then watch those objections. The first layer of objections will show you some things. And just kind of repeat that. Like, if you're going to be quiet, why not do that? Just say, I don't have to be quiet here. Watch objections. Watch objections. Slowly the energy of shutdown will kind of, if you continue watching objections, it'll dissipate. And that doesn't mean you're going to be really open to speaking, but you can feel coming out of the shutdown as you do the inquiry. It feels like you're trapped in it, and then you start inquiring, and it just starts opening up a little bit. And then that's a state in which we have other choices, like we can say something then, or we're not stuck in the shutdown. So just coming out of shutdown first, and then that's just a kind of in the moment thing, right? Because you're already quiet. Just look at that. But then that may just get you back into the conversation. The trigger may move at that point, but if it doesn't, and you're going to be quiet, why not pull aside for your own sake and just go deeper into like the anger repression stuff, or whatever trigger is really relevant beyond just shut down. Like, there's probably something else that they said, right? You shut down because they said something. So you might want to go into inquiry about what they said after the shutdown inquiry. But shutdown inquiry can pull you out of it when you're in it. And that's a good thing to start with.
Okay. Could you tell me the name of that video again? Because I forgot.
Inquiring Out of Shutdown, I think, is what it's called.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Something like that. It should be on the members area videos
Yeah.
page or YouTube.
Okay. Thank you. I'll look at it.
Well, I love these Christmas questions, these holiday questions, because it's real life stuff, not theoretical stuff we all have to deal with. Okay, who's next?
Hello.
Hello.
I worked with anger and hatred inquiry, and after a while I could deeper. In the morning I did some inquiry on that, some more inquiry, and I could go deeper into the more vulnerable parts also. And the main stuff there, the main hurt or pain or whatever, is that I didn't face in the childhood that my parents thought that it would be better if I don't exist. And I just started to face it. I didn't get so much time to inquire on that, but I kind of touched into it. And I just wanted to share that this is where I am in the process now. And yeah.
Thank you, Serena. And something else occurred to me on the shutdown, or anger expression. So I hear people saying, well, so I just need to go and like beat pillows and yell and scream into a pillow or get my anger out, which I think is good. I do that in sessions. But it occurs to me you can only express an anger at the level your consciousness will allow. So all
Yeah.
these groups around the country right now that are trying to get people to express, again, I've seen it in session where I'll say, okay, get angry at dad right now. And people have difficulty even verbalizing it in a session when dad's not there. So if you can use these two things in tandem, if you're expressing anger in a healthy way somehow, working out, yelling, screaming, pillows, whatever, toggle back and forth between the repression inquiry and the expression of it. Because again, if your conditioning won't allow it, you're only going to be able to get so angry. It's only going to come out so much. Go back into inquiry to where that loosens up and then express more. It's just like that. Like it really will only let you express so much because it's shameful for those who repress. Anger feels shaming. You know, even when we do it in front of someone who's neutral, it feels shaming. I don't know if you can relate to that. So just toggle back and forth if you're going to use a healthy expression, vehicle for expression.
Yeah, I express anger and hatred when I work with this. I'm like saying really tough things and I really mean them. And sometimes I subtly in the background, something gets scared, you know, that I have this side, you know. Yeah.
There's one other thing here. There's little nuances that we find. Shaking. So when we avoid conflict, raise your hand if you have that avoidance of conflict, which ends up in somehow shaking. You ever had that before? I had an amazing session with somebody the other day where they were doing the inquiry, hold it, I don't have to hold it in, the anger. This is someone who historically represses anger a lot. And he was getting really free of that. The hold it in was getting lighter and lighter, almost to the point where he felt like he could go and speak to his girlfriend about the issue. He was ready to do it. But then there was just shaking going on. And so I just said, feel into the shaking. What does it have to say? And it said, no, don't do it. So it's just interesting how any of these sensations can translate into words. And that explains all that shaking when you're avoiding conflict. It's like, it's not just fear, it's also holding energy back. You're trying to hold it all back in systems like this, because as soon as he started inquiring into it, the shaking stopped. And then he felt more able to go and express it to her, even non-violently. So just watch for those little things that are holdouts when you're doing this work. Go ahead.
I was going through a situation recently, which I think I related to you the last time we chatted, where a friend of mine said something that was really rude, and I immediately was very angry, but I stopped myself from expressing it because I've learned in my life that if I express my anger, it will tend to decimate the other person. And so it's like, that's what stops me. Because I know I saw the anger, I heard it, and I'm like ready to go to war with this person. And the thing that stops me, and I heard that too, it was basically the consequence. The consequence of it, as I see it, was I was going to decimate this person and I was going to blow this person out of my life, which I've done, just in my interactions. And that causes the repression from like expressing it. Any thoughts on it?
I do, because that's why I created the vulnerability inquiries, because as I came out of anger repression, I was thinking, well, that's not going to solve much. I'm glad that I can get angry now, but it doesn't really solve much. And I don't want to repress it. So I started to unpack it. So if you're coming out of repression or not in a lot of repression, you might want to go through the vulnerability inquiries when you get that first wave of anger, so you can unpack it, because you even said the fear of annihilating the person
Yes.
might show up in the what am I afraid of, unpacking the fears and any shame. And then it comes back to the vulnerability after you unpack those. So maybe that's your thing, whereas other people are doing a lot of anger repression work. Maybe yours is to start with the vulnerability stuff and unpack it because it's not as repressed for you. I mean, there's some there, but it doesn't
Yeah.
seem as repressed as it is for
Yeah,
some people.
no, you're 100% right. The vulnerability thing is big for me because I really hate it. I hate being weak. I hate it when others are weak. But at the same time, it's like but just so you know, I took a couple of days, even though I maybe didn't do it in the KI way, but I took a couple of days and I calmed myself down and I did go to her. And I was like, look, are you aware what you said was very hurtful? Took her like 5 minutes, came right back around. She was like, yep, I'm sorry, it will never happen again. And I was like, wow, I didn't have to kill you. It's amazing. So
That's good.
I will go
Well, yeah, because
vulnerability.
even in the vulnerability series, part of the anger line gets to repression, so it'll pick it up for you, and you'll get to work with that too through that.
Mono.
Yeah.
And I also, sorry, go ahead.
You sure, Serena? You can, if you're can I carry on? Sorry, yeah. So since we're talking about the shame, yeah. So I've been looking at a lot of that, and that this comes from my anger repression. It's amazing how it's so connected, like you say, like, you know, when I wanted to show anger, like what Shin just said about how I remembered every time I got anger, I feel really shit after it. I mean, the anger equals horrible. So, and then anger equals crying or something for me, because I cried after I got angry and stuff. And that was a real shame for me. And it seems like shame, it was more like I was suppressing shame more than anger. It feels like that now. And all this stuff coming up now where I want to hide myself from, I'm not so open to people, or I just don't want people to, I'm just not so open about myself, or, I don't want people to talk about me, or I felt quite secretive about myself to anyone. I'm seeing that side of myself, catching that side of myself from coming from shame, and there's a whole lot of dark corners about the sexuality and how I see women, and that all that stuff, just, it's all coming up about the shame I'm looking at. But Scott, how I'm accessing it right now, I'm just still doing a vulnerability question where I just say, I'm not ashamed. And then will come say, no, I am, because like that, right? So I just that's how I've been doing that. But I guess that's how I've been doing it right. And I found all this stuff, or it leads to different story or images when I was a kid, how I had to get angry and how I cried and how I carried that with me as a shame and stuff like that. But yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's what I've been feeling. Yeah.
With shame, you can also inquiries like, I want people to see me. I want people to see all my emotions. I want people to see my anger. Because it can bring up shame thoughts.
Yeah.
To say it that way.
Yeah, I want people to see me. It's like, no, because that's like the fundamental of myself, where how everything was stemming from, like and there's a big utility to it. I can see it's the way I protect myself. I don't really have to face the world. I don't have to come to terms with a lot of stuff that's running underneath, and I could see that. And but it's really deep stuff, and but it's amazing at the same time. But some stuff I just
Well, the other thing that you didn't really say, but I think if you guys start playing around with the vulnerability inquiries, you'll find that you may be angry when you don't know it. You may be afraid when you're not aware of it. You may be ashamed. So there's something about acknowledging that's different than repressing. I'm just using different words. Like, it may not be repressing anger, but it's there. And I'm not really awake to it, acknowledging it, or the shame is there. So just inviting people throughout the day, just throw one of those questions in. I'm not angry. See what comes up.
Yeah, I really understand that, because before I really start unpacking this, I didn't know what shame was until because it was, I said this before, because it was so familiar to who I am, the big story I was running, until I questioned it. I never thought that was like, because it was so normal, the feeling of just don't want to share myself, or I thought, I could tell myself all my life, that's my personality, that's who I am. But it was underneath, it was shame. And until I actually questioned it, the reaction came up. I didn't know that sensation or the body feeling I had was the shame. And now, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff there now I can actually access, which is amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Shame has a lot with it for sure. Another one is I don't have to hide. There's another way to get at it. I don't have to hide my emotions.
Yeah.
Just a different wording for the same thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff to do with that with, for me, like partners, women, sexuality. Yeah, there's stuff that the hiding stuff, and it's coming. Yeah.
I would like to ask a question about the relationship between the vulnerable self, kind of learning how to open that up and be with it and express that. Doesn't that come before you can get to the anger repression? Because with myself, what I'm seeing is there's a self that my mind is trying to protect so hard that it goes right past feeling the hurt into the anger and then exploding. And it's like, so, I feel like I need to be able to sit with myself, to kind of sit with that hurt child and frightened child, etc., before I can even get near this stuff. I mean, to me, it's like dynamite. That's what I do, is I tend to explode. I identify a lot with Shin, and some of the patterns that she was talking about are similar to mine. But that's the thing, is I've had a lot of difficulty. I've been at this for a fair amount of time, and I've had a lot of difficulty really getting into the vulnerable side of myself and bringing that into the session to heal.
I don't think there's anything particularly magical about the order that I have, the vulnerability inquiries. And I always want to say to people, trust your own experience. These are tools, not rules. So if a different angle works for you, do it. Like, I could see how you would just go straight to vulnerability. Like, I can be vulnerable. Maybe that's the way in. But others will say that they can't find that when they're angry. And I couldn't either. Like, when I'm angry, I can't find it. When I'm really angry, I have to be angry first, and acknowledge that, and then unpack it. But I could see how someone's experience could be different, and that doesn't work in that order. Just using the order that it works. The reason that I did it that way, again, was because anger's on the surface. When it's up, it seems like it's just on the surface, and for me, it would cloud out all the other things. I couldn't see them. So then I would bring fear on the surface. Now I can see that. Okay, that gets released. Now I can bring hurt or shame or vulnerable emotion there. Now I can get to vulnerability through that. But maybe yours is a different trajectory. Maybe you start with vulnerability because for some reason you can't access the anger. So you would start there and then just move sometime to anger so it doesn't get excluded.
Well, I tried to follow along with an inquiry you did on the 15th. I was following that recording, and you had us visualize our parents and say, I can express love and affection to my parents. And it brought something up that I couldn't get at. It's a fairly familiar stuck sensation behind my heart that comes up, and I couldn't really get into couldn't get it to answer me back, right? And I felt really out of it for a day or so. And then this thing came up where it was like, those are not my parents, those are my siblings. And I said, which was strange to me. And it's like, well, okay, I can't have them be my parents, who they actually were to me, because it's just too painful. And also, you know, some of the things they did, I don't consider very adult. And you know, there's all these, it's pretty complex, but it's like, maybe that's just the bare corner of me getting into that more vulnerable side of myself, to see like, okay, where was I actually at when these things were happening when I was a kid? All the sarcasm at the dinner
Yeah.
table and all that kind of stuff. Who was I tucking away?
Yeah, you know, it just occurred to me also that if anger is repressed for somebody, they might not be able to start on the anger line because it's not accessible. So that makes sense. If other emotions are more accessible, you might start there. I created the vulnerability because I was coming out of anger repression. It was accessible, fully accessible. So then I unpacked it. So I can see where you might need to start somewhere else with that. If for whatever reason, if there's anger, it's not accessible. Yeah, you have to work towards it. So you're starting with like the vulnerability of being open and loving towards them. That opens something up first. That's more accessible, is what you're saying.
Is there a particular place to look for the vulnerability inquiries? Because that's new to me.
Yeah, it's on the forum. So if you go to the videos page, they're all on the videos page right now.
The
We're going to
videos,
move
okay.
them around, but you'll see it to scroll down and you'll see vulnerability inquiries, the title.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
And it's a long one. You can just sit through and be guided. Like it's not me talking much, it's guiding you the whole time.
Oh, okay. Scary.
Anybody have any ideas for a process, group process, text? But we'll just keep it open to the floor. Anybody who wants to share.
I have another
Yeah.
question. Oh. Go ahead, Serena.
So I just wanted to ask the question before Toshi, is that so I work with the anger repression and the hatred or whatever, and it's just so deep now, you know, that I can feel it on my skin, or every feeling that I felt at that time and got repressed, you know. It's just, I can feel the smells and everything is here from that time. I don't know how to say, it's just present, you know, all the trauma or whatever feeling got repressed. I can feel the environment, the sense, the presence of environment from childhood. So everything is so much here, you know. And when I do the anger repression, it's like it's a yes. So I express, I say the things like I'm there, but it's here now. And yeah, pillow and saying things. But at some point, I feel it's still not fully allowed. And I feel like, because it's so present, the whole inquiry and the feelings and everything, I feel like I just need someone to be in conflict, you know, to really experience or something. I don't know if you get it. What I'm wanting to say is that it's still just something in the background, something still holding back. This is why I feel this, like I want to punch someone in the face or something, you know, or I don't know what, but it's still just something is holding back. Something maybe, yeah.
You could wait for someone to trigger you, but you could also stay in the inquiry. I don't have to hold it back. Either way, I mean, I may not give it all to you, but if there's still something there, if you're still getting a response to it, you can stay in that. Because the people that are staying in it are finding emotional releases and deeper stuff coming from the surface. I mean, from the back to the surface. You could wait to see when someone triggers you and then go into it. But then you're still going to be going into the same inquiry, which is I don't have to hold it back, with just more energy there.
Yeah, let's first do the inquiry. Yeah. Thank you.
No one has any ideas about group process?
Possibly anger repression
Okay.
it's
And
been mentioned,
vulnerability.
and
And
vulnerability.
both. Okay. Let's see if I have anything to share before we start here. Last chance, last call. Go ahead, Heather.
You know, I'm a peacemaker on the Enneagram, and I've taken that several times throughout my life, and it never changes. And honestly, when I started to kind of come on this forum, I've done KI, but I haven't done the anger repression, and I thought there's no way I'll ever like it. It can't be there. Like it just can't be there. And like I have been running into, and where I get really ticked is I'm part of a spiritual community, and it's like love, joy, peace, like everybody get along, focus on what's good. And I'm just pissed about that now. Like people will come and they're this wonderful, and it's so surprising to me. Like I thought I'd get angry at, I don't know, something else besides that. And it's kind of shocking to me. And what I tend to do is then I go into my deficiency story. Oh, you're not feeling that way, so something is wrong with you. So then I go into the unfindable inquiry. But I'm surprised at the things that are triggering it right now.
I don't know if you were here the other day when I was talking about shadow work, because as you start to become aware of your own repressions or issues, it's easy. We all do it. I've done it, where you start shadow boxing people who do it. So it's like working on anger repression. Suddenly, the peacemakers in the world would trigger me. Yeah.
Right.
So
that makes
but
sense.
what that's doing, it's actually calling me deeper into inquiry. It's like now my environment is pointing me to it, because before it might have been here as an issue, but now I'm shadow boxing these people, which just makes it more up for me and more of an invitation to kind of finally deal with it. So you can do some shadow work, like to start off, looking at someone who's repressing anger. What is the trait that you don't like? Repressing anger, probably, or peacemaking. So shadow process, what do I hate about peacemaking? What do I not like about that? It isn't authentic, it's people pleasing, it represses, it's whatever. You just dialogue, get it all out, keep going. And the third step is I own it. Like I'm a peacemaker, I repress anger. Find those areas where it's true. And then from there, slide right into anger repression inquiry. It's all pointing you there at this point. If you avoid it, you'll probably see more shadows popping up at first. And the whole thing about, I use the word institutionalized repression in spirituality because you can get into groups that reinforce it, like you may be in right now. And then if you're coming over here where we're doing anger repression work, it's almost like going to create a bunch of shadows in your group for you, because
Oh my gosh,
if
yes.
there's repression there already. Yeah. So, you know the work to do, even though there's resistance to it, seems like you're headed towards it anyway. It's just
Right.
working with that. You don't have to, you could just leave here and forget we ever had this conversation.
That's
Just
not
go.
freedom.
Yeah.
Can I ask one last question? So as I was saying before, my discovery of the utility of my persistent shame came up really big, and it had a huge understanding that basically like the shaming that I got throughout my childhood and even into adulthood, like kind of like what I was explaining with my aunt and my mom. I think what's happened to me is that I have subconsciously decided to buy into that and make that a part of my identity to suppress the enormous amount of anger. And so it's like I had to make them right in order to be able to do that. And so I had this big epiphany about it after doing the utility inquiry on the shame. And so now that I've done that, and now that I know that, it's like I don't know what to do with it exactly. Do you understand what I'm saying? And there still is some shame, but it's like, I know there's also a lot of anger too. So
What is the identity that you took on in order to avoid the conflict with them? You just took it on.
I took it on like I'm the bad one. I'm the irresponsible, bad, like not good enough one, basically.
And the utility for that is that to being bad is, again, what?
It's so the utility is that if I accept their point of view that I'm bad, that I'm irresponsible, that I'm flawed, then I get to repress the anger at them, because then I'm not accepting how horrible they were to me. So if I agree with them, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
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 Why don't you start with splitting the baby? So you've got on your left side of awareness the thought, I'm bad. And on the right side, you have, this is how I repress anger. And the two thoughts are connected. They're almost like one thought. But now you're separating them out, and then just witnessing back and forth. Like just look at the one for a moment, be with the energy of that. Just for a little while, switch over the other one, be with the energy of that, alternating back and forth. And then that helps to where it's like they're not as connected. As one falls away, they don't seem as connected, but you have to do it a few times like that, just left side, right side.
Do
and then
you
may
mean
want to go ahead.
when you said, so you said that I'm bad or the shame thoughts on one side, what was the other side? The like,
the utility, like this is why I
oh,
repress anger.
okay. So how would I do an inquiry on that part after I've already discovered the utility of it? Would there be
Well,
a reverse inquiry or anything to use?
the reverse inquiry already pulled it up for you. You already have I'm bad.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
spend some time just witnessing these two things first. Like I'm bad. This is how I repress anger. Like just go back and forth,
Oh,
let
okay.
them fall away. Then you can go into more inquiry. Obviously, you can go, I'm a good person. Just challenge it directly. I'm good. And then watch objections. And then, of course, the anger repression is just a whole dimension to go down. It's not just looking at the thought, I repress anger. There's a mechanism. That's the
Yeah.
repression work.
I
But
kind of think
start
I
with
have
just
a whole lot of anger repression work to do. Like that's probably going to be my big
yes,
task to do for a while. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, if you hang around here, you probably will do
Okay.
that at some point. Yeah. But for now, just left and right, witnessing the thing I believe on the left and the utility on the right, anger,
Okay.
repression, and then, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
So it occurred to me as we're talking why personally I've had a hard time being vulnerable. The reason for it is because the people that brought me up are very angry people. They exploit it. If I'm vulnerable, because that's how I was exploited and traumatized from the get-go, I'm vulnerable. I tell them about how I feel, what I want, blah, 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 and it's used against me. So then am I back to the boundary thing?
Well,
Do you see what I mean? I'm stuck in a thing.
but maybe some of your work is repression on some of these vulnerable emotions, whereas other people are doing anger repression as their main one. You might pick up the inquiry like, I can feel and show, not necessarily weakness, that's like a value judgment, but I can feel and show
Softness,
kind of,
maybe.
yeah, whatever is vulnerable. Like I can feel and show fear, I can feel and show vulnerability, I can feel and show hurt. And you'll probably get no's on that if that's
A lot of
repressed.
no's right here. It's like, no, you're crazy because I'm going to get exploited. I will.
Yes. So your work is almost completely flipped than a lot of people here. People are having to do anger repression work because the vulnerable emotions have been accessible to them. Anger has not been. Yours is opposite. Anger has been accessible. Vulnerable emotions haven't been. So you want to switch your inquiries, repression inquiries, to the vulnerable emotions for a while.
I do feel like I can access my vulnerability. It's just that I can't let them I have to squash them. It's like the second I see it, I have to squash them. Is that repression, or is that like a?
The thing is the mind will say that it's not repressing or that I can do that, but you have to be careful because the body doesn't lie. So if you just go into inquiry, if you just say, I can express hurt to them directly, what comes up? Go with that. Don't trust the mind that says I can be vulnerable when obviously there's a block to it right there. Stay in inquiry around it.
But I guess my mind wants to ask, well, what happens if I get through this and I can be vulnerable and then I'm just going to get decimated?
Well, that's part of what would come up in the repression inquiry. Like, I can feel and show hurt. No, because I'll be decimated. And you're just going to stay with that and stay with that because that's where the pain and the fear is. You stay with that. Like people who are repressing anger, they'll say, I don't want to express anger because they'll attack me. Same reason. But that's part of the programming that keeps us shut down around these emotions. Chances are they're not going to physically annihilate you. It's a psychological threat that we're defending against. So nobody's going to annihilate you. So you're going into the psychological sense of this, of protecting self.
I see it. Thank you.
Okay, so unless somebody has a burning desire to share, would you have one shot here, last call? Let's do some repression. Yeah.
Scott, I don't know if you remember. I remember you doing this video when you maybe first time you talked about the vulnerability, anger repression, kind of inquiries on YouTube or something. And when you're talking about, you were asking people to come up with a document to document this. Do you remember that? And I think I have, and Alina made one, I think, and I have a copy of that. And I don't know if you have seen it, but there was few people asking me, here, how, if there's a procedure or like how to go about doing this. And obviously I'll ask Alina if I can share that, but do you remember, or if you have something like that, because that's been really useful for me. And it kind of looks like this. I think I just want to share. Can anyone see this? I can't hear you, Scott, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So if people want to just read through that, so Alina, facilitator, has mapped it all out. This is from anger to vulnerability, starting at the top. I don't know, could you post this? Could you post this in the members area for me, Toshi?
Sure, yeah, I don't know how to, I'll ask, I'll just learn about Alina to see if it's okay to share. I'm sure it's okay, but then I'll just, I can put it wherever I need to or something.
It is okay. I mean, I know that it is, but you can check with it if you want to be sure.
Sure, okay. If it's okay, then I'll blame you.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is a good thing to read later, guys, just to see. This is a map for the inquiries, but let's just go into it now. Why don't we leave this up and people can just kind of reference it.
Yeah, it helped me very much, this one.
Yeah. And I have to call for about a 3 to 4 minute bathroom break because if I don't, I'll be very uncomfortable here. Let's take a 3-minute break, 4-minute break, come back, and we'll start right in on the inquiry. you remember when we were sharing about what do you do in the midst of being triggered at family gatherings? This is why with the vulnerability inquiry, I don't like to take people into rest first because that's not how life works. You know, sometimes you're right in the middle of a trigger and you just have to start looking. So let's try this without coming to awareness. We're gonna just like right in the middle of something, start looking. Find the person that you're upset with. You don't even have to know what you're feeling, just someone that you feel in your body or a situation, and pull that person up. Well, we're going to work with this person for a while unless this becomes quiet or empty, and then you can bring somebody else in. John, if when I say anger, if that's not where you want to start, just substitute it with a different emotion. Like I can feel and express hurt, if that's the line that you're on, John. But for most people, we're going to start with anger and work our way down, like on the chart. So let's start here with the person in front of you. I'm not angry. So you want to see words. So if words pop up, rest with those. If it's just a sensation, ask what it means about you so you can see the words. If it's an image, ask what the image means about you so you can see the words. And then just let that be. So think of how we've spent our whole lifetime squirming out of this, like not wanting to acknowledge that we're angry, not wanting to feel it. Here's your chance to do something different, just to be with that thought and that feeling. Fully allowing it. It may not suggest a tool, but you can use it. Tracing, tapping. If anybody doesn't know what any of those mean, just raise your hand and I'll explain. You use those when things are really sticky. Sometimes the thought is just, yes, I'm angry. That simple. Let that be. Stay with the thought until it lets go of you instead of turning away from it or getting to the next thing, which is all indicates repression, trying to move away from something. Just be with it, even if you have to use a tool. If the thought starts to disappear, let that happen. And when it falls away, take a few breaths, watching breath, just to kind of come back to the recognition of pure awareness for a moment. Even if there's still energy there, take a short moment between each of these. And then repeat again, I'm not angry. You can even say it with like fervor, like, I'm not angry. And that can provoke it even more. If it doesn't rise to the level of anger, say, I'm not annoyed. I'm not annoyed by this person. I'm not frustrated. See what comes up. If you're not getting anything on, I'm not angry, but the person is still there, kind of hanging out in your awareness, look into repression and feel into any area that's tight, contracted, painful. I can feel and express anger to the person, or I can feel and express what I want to say to the person. See if you get a no. If so, that means your anger is hiding somewhere. Stay with these no's. So you're on one or more inquiries here. Either I'm not angry, or I'm not annoyed, or I can feel and express the anger to this person. So if the anger is still there, just let it be there. Go into I'm not angry so you can see more of the viewpoints around it. If it seems tucked into a pain or contraction, stick with I can feel and express this anger to them. And rest with the nose. If you're still on the anger line, you might mute us. If you need to stay with it, just mute us and stick with your process. If not, let's move to the fear. It's the next layer under that on the flow chart. So you want to look at the person, attention in the inner body, because that's where you feel things. I'm not afraid or anxious about anything. I'm not afraid. And again, it could just be yes, you are, but see what thought is there. If it's just a sensation, remember there's always a mind body connection. Ask, what would this sensation say if it had a voice? Could be an image. What does the image mean about me? Rest. You try different wording like, I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I'm not anxious. So it could be fear about the person. It could also be fear about expressing anger or fear that something bad is going to happen as a result of it. Just that's why I made it open ended. I'm not afraid of anything. The key here is to resist the temptation to analyze or to try to understand yourself or the other person. Keep it simple. Just be with the thoughts. That simple. So someone asked, is this about the same person as the anger line? Yes, you're unpacking the emotions around this trigger. But if it gets empty, like there's just nothing there, you can bring somebody else in here. We're unpacking the emotions and the trigger around a certain person or event. Because we're dealing with fear, someone said a trauma command is coming up. Let it play itself out. Hear it from awareness and let it play itself out as much as it wants to. Every time the thought comes up, stay with it. Like run away, stay, rest. Let it come to rest. Let it disappear. Take a moment, breathe. Watch breath. Evoke it back. Like you can say, I don't have to run away. And then it comes back. You're not going to be able to like work all the way through this trauma command right now. It's a bigger inquiry, but you can take a look at it now as it applies to this trigger. Some of you may not be feeling much anxiety or fear at this point. You could go into repression. Often that's the stomach holding fear, but it could be anywhere where there's some sort of tightness or contraction. Feel into that. See the person. I can feel and show my fear to the person. You could even turn up the heat a little bit. Like right after this session, I'm going to go talk to him and tell him I'm afraid. And then just to help support you, I'll repeat it for you. Look again. I can feel and show my fear to her. Give me a quick raise of the hand if you're ready to go to the next layer. So I just don't want to move too quickly. I just want to see where everybody is. So if you're still in the fear line, keep your hand down. But if you're ready to move on, give me a hand. So some of you will be moving on to, I'm not hurt by anything. It's not just hurt by them. It could be hurt by something else in the situation. So I'm not hurt by anything. But for those who are on the fear line, just stick with the fear inquiries. I'm not afraid. Remember, if just a body energy comes up, ask what it means about you, because the thought is unconscious there. If an image comes up, the words are often hidden. So ask what the image means about you. The next part of that hurt inquiry is, I can feel and express the hurt to the person. Or I can call them up right after this session and share this hurt with them. I can feel and express this hurt to them. Let's move to shame. So I'm not ashamed of anything, including my anger or anything else. I'm not ashamed of anything. And then I can feel and express the shame to them. Or right after the session, I can call them up, express that to them. And let's move to the vulnerability part, which is pulling up the person and saying, okay, I can be vulnerable with this person now. Another way of saying is I can express all of these emotions to them. And one more round. I can be vulnerable with this person now. So that inquiry, the whole series will show you what you're repressing mostly. I don't know if you all pick that up, like certain emotions are harder to express. I assume that those of you like John who don't have, well, who else was it? Didn't have a lot of anger repression. So I was wondering what showed up for you on the other emotions. Like, did you see the more repression on the hurt and the shame line than you did on the anger? Just curious to those folks.
Fear. I spent a lot of time at fear. Expressing, show fear. It was just one rejection after another.
Hmm. And that's what people experience on anger. Like for some people with depression, they experience one after the other. So you get that one after the other on the other ones, but it's still repression, just different flavor, same mechanism. There was a lot coming up for a few of you if you want to share. I saw some tears and other things.
I felt I had to go into the hurt a lot. I couldn't help but see the anger. I have this old scene where it's the dinner table and my dad is sitting to my right. And if I say the wrong thing, he's going to hit me. Or I'm going to get some sarcastic pounce. And that's really, hitting I can handle. The sarcastic pounce, that's where the pain is. And so there's this huge effort to get out of there and not be present. Although you can't leave the dinner table. It's this forced togetherness thing, right? So it's like, I have to figure out how to be there physically, but not be present. And then that leads to saying dumb things that are likely to get ridiculed. So it's like this whole cycle, but the angry guy is like, I know he's there. I mean, the angry me is there. And also I'm afraid of being, it's like it's a copy of my dad. It's like the two of the, it's very hard to keep the two apart. So there's a lot of self-hatred up in that and a lot of repressed anger towards my dad. It was an interesting experience.
John, did you start on one of the other lines then? Did you start with like hurt or fear, or did you start with anger with us?
I just noticed that the anger was there. And it's kind of like, okay, we know that's there. We can't let that out. But why, what is going to happen if we let it out? Well, I'm going to get hit, or I'm going to get physically hit, or I'm going to get ridiculed. And then I'll go into the shame. I think there's shame back there, but I didn't really get into that. I found this very confusing because it's almost like I know all these people are here in front of me, and it's like a mirror of all the people. There's like 8 of us around the dinner table, right? And so it's kind of like this is mirroring that situation. It was very interesting. And plus, I was following something that you weren't necessarily guiding at the time as per your instructions. So, but I did get back into that feeling back in the back of my chest, and the fact that it's about hurt and trying to protect myself from that hurt, not feeling it, not being present, and not doing anything that's going to cause more of it. So it's like there's a lot of energy wrapped up in protecting myself there that it's exhausting.
Yeah. There's so much avoidance of emotion and repression on the path, like on the self-improvement and enlightenment path. This is why I feel like this is so powerful, because if you can acknowledge everything that you're feeling and allow it, like what else is there other than trauma work and other things? I mean, to me, this is so important. And somebody asked, like, what do you do in the moment? If there's inquiry that I do in the moment, it might be something like that. Like somebody says something, I say, I'm not angry. And then there it comes. Like, it's a simple inquiry to remember. It's like, I'm not angry. Yes, I am. Or I'm not afraid. Yes, I am. That might be the way to start doing it in the company of others, just starting to play with it a little bit to see if you can go through it, or otherwise just pull away from them. Family gathering, pull away and start looking at it then. Plus I have a video on here. You can just be guided through. You can just click on that video, just be guided through it. Did anybody resolve, did the trigger get resolved for anyone substantially? Like it just feels different now. You want to share that?
I'd like to
Yeah,
share. Oh.
I will be quick. It's just that I lost the thought. Yeah, for me, the hurt part, or with that, I've worked with that, the hurt part and the real emotions to some. I pulled up the inquiry that I can feel, express, and show my real emotions to him, and that was a block. That fear of that he will hurt me if he see my hurt, then he will face that he hurt me or something, and then he will beat me up to the ground or something, or he will not be able to process that he hurt me or something. But basically it was just the feeling that I get more hurt if I express my hurt, if I show my real feelings, and somehow I just didn't know how to get over it, or I was just in it, and at some point it was just this tiredness that no matter what's going to happen, I'm not going to suppress my real feelings anymore, because I just don't want to do it. And somehow from here it started to be expressed and experienced, my feelings with him. So that's all. Thank you.
Natalia.
Thank you. So I'm very happy that that I did this because first I see that I was very ashamed and I was feel guilty that I'm angry, and that the hurt was the most difficult, the hurt part, to admit that I feel hurt, because it means I'm weak. So I'm also ashamed that I'm weak. And just before this, we start this inquiry, I wrote down that I feel shame and guilt that I'm vulnerable. It means I'm weak. And it was very strong when at the beginning someone told this, used this word weak. I just shut down so strongly that even if I wanted to say something about my process, I just couldn't at all, because I was so just so thank you very much for this inquiry. It helped me really in the real situation, and I hope when this meeting will end, I will call and really say this to this person. So thank you very much.
Does anybody else equate vulnerability with weakness, like as a cultural thing? Like that we learned that, or even learned it through our childhood? Does anybody else have that? I have had a little bit of that. You could do a little bit of inquiry on vulnerability doesn't mean weakness, but it's kind of abstract. It's like, it's kind of like abstract concept. But if you can go back to a time in your life when you did show vulnerability and you felt like you were weak, or someone called you that might be something to work with. Like going back to the memory and saying, I'm not weak here, might bring it up. Because I would say the vulnerability, you want to get that defined differently. So it's not a character flaw so much as an opening in relationship. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I do. So this was really interesting. I did it with the aunt that I was talking about at the beginning with, the holidays and everything. And, she was really present in my childhood. And so for pretty much all of those, it just really gave me an understanding of how, like, pretty much no emotion was acceptable to have at all, except for being polite, being quiet, not annoying them, and being a little happy was okay. But none of those were okay at all. And it just, I ended up having this thought of like, I can't hold this in anymore. I'm going to explode. Like I felt like my body was going to explode. And it reminds me of what you said about shaking. And I have experienced this thing when doing inquiry and other trauma work where my stomach, where, you know, my big contraction is, will actually shake. And I really think it is like I'm holding all of this in because basically none of it was okay to have at all. Like I was supposed to basically be like a little polite robot all the time. So yeah, that was so interesting. And I really got a lot out of being able to see what that was actually like for me as a child with all of those different emotions, pretty much.
Well, talk about breaking the chain of the intergenerational stuff, like your whole family does or doing work to not repress anymore. So that's interesting how that would unfold in your family. Like, so I hope you stay around and tell us how that unfolds.
Yeah. And another thought I had is the whole you're irresponsible thing that I was sharing. I had this kind of breakthrough moment during all of that where I was like, well, wait, who's the one that's actually doing this deep inner work to fix the family? That's pretty responsible. And I felt really good about that. Like I felt like I was taking responsibility for all of their crap, basically. So yeah,
Yep.
that was a good moment for me.
Good. Anyone else want to hear about the process or about bringing it into your life more, like how to use it in your life more?
Yeah, just want to share about what you said about vulnerability is not weakness. I just quickly inquired into that because in my head, I know it's especially through like KI work and like some non-duality realization stuff, I've got to cry a lot more because crying was a no-no for me before. And I've learned to be vulnerable by crying and stuff like that. But I just did that reverse inquiry and I could feel my body just reacting straight away that it's definitely sign of weakness or something like that. And I can see some childhood memories coming up. So yeah, there's something to look at as well. Very interesting. The whole, yeah, I just feel like I'm chipping away, but there's still more bodily thing that it's just remembered or something that's, yeah, it's even though however much I cried, however much I'm showing up to all this stuff, it's just, yeah, body never lies.
Thanks, Toshi. Anyone else?
At some point, I thought, is that what it takes to be free to actually go to that person and express things? And I would just get like total terror. Like I'd rather die than express anything to them. And I'm like, oh, I'm not really free. But yeah, I have that issue with my stepdad, and he's an alcoholic, and he's a pretty unpleasant person. And he hates me, I hate him, and that's been the issue since 20 years. But he's part of the family and I'm part of the family. That's the only thing that keeps that together. Otherwise we would just not interact or anything. And so I thought, do I actually have to face this one day and actually talk to this person, which I could just not even imagine. Like with my mom, it's possible to slowly talk things through because she has a certain openness, but my stepdad has no openness, and I also don't have an openness with him. So I wonder, do I always have to resolve it in this lifetime with a person where I feel such a strong block towards actually being vulnerable and expressing things to them?
My take on that is, like, when I think about the guys who bullied me in 6th grade, they were my best friends, and the ringleader is not somebody that I could go. I actually tried at one time. After I did a lot of work, I reached out to him and I said, and it was very, very clear. I was just saying, this is what was going on for me, going on for me, going on for me. And I didn't really point any fingers or anything. And he came back with like, is this for real? That was his only response. So he's not the kind of person that I'm necessarily going to go back to and do a lot of work with. But what I realized is that what I think I'm doing, or what we're doing, is we're working on the transference. Like, so if a father was like that or a bully, we do work on that so it doesn't transfer as much to other relationships where people are not like that. And we project it onto them like they are like that. We see bullies where there aren't any and all that. So that's how I saw it. I don't see it as we have to go make amends with everyone necessarily. And I wouldn't give advice either way on that. You just feeling it out on your own.
But we can resolve everything inside, no? Like with inquiry, we can resolve basically everything, no?
I think so. Some requires deeper work to resolve things, but yes, I mean, even if you end up with boundaries, you can end up with boundaries and still have things relatively resolved, but you still don't want to be around a certain energy, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, guys, I better jump to a session here. So I'm going to do this every morning for a while until we get the momentum going, and then my 9 o'clock Central Time slot is going to open up here in the next couple of weeks, and I'll start doing the meetings a little bit later in the morning for more people to show up around 9, and I'll probably drop off and not do one every day, but for a while I will until we get the momentum going here. So tomorrow morning we'll be here. I'll join. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.